So like the name is very interesting right now with like 11 as well as maximum right now. During night time present at like 11 like house like looking like right now without the data that or before like all will be making it back to house like after that the affection like symbol to find that to would have totally sold up to happens to like up like 11 like I'm looking at them those like affection players which like them totally infiltrating into that house and I'm looking at them so they threatening 11 with like admitting matching and that way like them that way in a like many manner like I'm doing that way then totally capturing and affecting 11 is like the scenario that I'm doing and definitely one mission that I'm sitting on this definitely for like Robin as well that the girl who works at like she's like at the Iconic shop that Steve as well works like Robin has that girl who knows Russian won't be like Robin knowing Russian won't be sure going to that or that mean I'm sorry because like Robin as well and right now will be since they do my ambition that would be one among like those Russian spy agents that me my ambition so like I'm in that way like even getting affected and like I'm even getting affected and taken to a specific location building within that the town or something and they are like I'm looking that when 11 go to project after I'm project like I'm doing that 11 as well as like steel as well as like getting like the surprise in like uh them seeing into that point in that the affected like kind of like state. And even before that I'm looking my steel as well as the thing getting like one of like the other biggest job of that the one like Robin would be revealing that they would once they were certainly finding out and almost very really that she's one of like the Russian spies that the scenario that I'm referring to. Like even Robin's like accent when speaking English as well would be like a fake accent. That's definitely necessary. So like Robin right before like after Steve and Dustin would be also like revealing Russians that wrote English accent which would be with that Russian accent, which like the scenario, single scenario that so like with like Steve as well as Dustin as well as like Robin really like with like the last people to like leave that mode in that in the night. So just bring definitely development creative like Steve finding this like whole discovery of like the song in like the one message like product message that totally like the mod having like the same song as like the song in like the chord was like I'm preferring that without creating that or like I'm preferring that another like that exact Russian spy agent who had the record of like everything like information finished with him of like later under that bomb or like one of their teams spy agent teams will be like multiple spy agents will be like something like that one which like the scenario that I'm doing. So like them totally confirming Steve as well as before that Steve and so that person would be losing that mall that person after that and I mean being at that point of that episode and that Robin's that twist of that really of that being with that the Russian players and so going to get that Steve as well as person being getting affected happening that point. It's like a good scenario that I'm sitting on the my brains. Also, my the impression of like the other multiple possibilities that I'm looking is for like with like fully affecting and bring this girl to that this like sort of like building there like that most of that the girl. So yeah, possibly maybe even being like not an actual monster, but like maybe according to that runners like villains it kind of like strategy to like it's just that she up into that girl to like have some loose consciousness so that like that way uh for without any incidents for like enough to totally uh, put that you're into like an different kind of like situation within that sort of like place and basically for like the for like enough experiments to be in it. That might be the case is also like the opposite to that and so like and the thing that's the case then like that more stuff like the a different kind of like a basic monster kind of thing that that girl had seen from within that zone while Billy had brought up to that border possibly maybe be only just a visual hallucination superpower of like one of like the already existing experiment individuals of like few to like experiment like having possessed that superpowers to that instill such a visual hallucination exactly like how the power how can he have like the power to like instill like visual hallucination onto like about like number maybe that you're seeing that much of possibly such a similar visual hallucination alone when in actuality the like just like particle just like particle of like the shadow matter which initially was present within that exact Gordon like area possibly having been eliminated by like prana like of like parallel versions of like intelligence from like the human world. They might have used like their telekinesis superpower to like quickly eliminate that the particle like shadow monster present that was initially present in that forum. Might be what might have happened if like also like another positive that happened. Yeah, like I'm saying that all across like the town of Hawkins like there would be multiple like that's like particles containing shadow monsters like present. Which might have by now already taken over like humans from that like multiple humans that are of like the town of Hawkins might be like the case by that's the person might be the things that might have happened by the person is also like a positive that of the program. So like definitely I'm specifically to my impression that like at like mayor clients like office like I'm thinking that definitely might be multiple individuals that might have already been like taken control the data just by the particular the channel monster and might be under like the control of the channel monster maybe to secretly and stealthily spy on that each and every single action of that mayor client. And I'm looking at still think it is also more considered so that mayor client possibly not being under the control of like the shadow monster and that's only being due to that the lessons that probably the shadow monster might have learned from like the past like taking control over twins in like the past and that way like it's regarding stealth to the maximum at that point that maybe like the term after like defeat with like in like the past with like even closing managing to like close like the gate in time like basically so that maybe like the shadow of the since then having all the purpose in the last year of having decided to like prioritize stealth to the extreme and something like mayor client with like an important figure and like a public figure like and maybe solely due to that reason like solely due to like the shadow of the maybe prioritizing stealth to the extreme that maybe like solely due to that reason I think like the shadow of the having not taken control of that mayor client. That we my own theory and but like would have taken control of like individuals working at like a map joint office might be the case that you to spy on like the map like in the question panel might be so that like in accordance like for like much up to that make each and every single move in its like path towards like the growing and like the spreading of like the underground upside down through like the town of Pocket. This would be one of the effects the past year might have been happening with such extreme stealth might have been the case that such experiences that maybe even not even one might be aware of it happening might be the case that you might have been. And also since I got into my representation totally protecting that Robin being one among those that secret Russian spy agents like who have shown up through like the town of Robin and like I'm still in the representation that the intent would be that link 11 to that have to like abduct 11 as transport 11 to that energy lab in like Russia might be the intent and what the like as to like how it might have happened would be actually that information might have lead towards like at some point in like the past year like anything like that crucial information that like 11 still alive might have somehow lead to to like the to like that scientist who had like that 1 year deadline supposedly he had to that open up like anything like that kind of the laboratory gauge like the backboard and that kind of the laboratory in Russia might see the case certainly not surrender. So like that way that then they might have learned of like 11 being like to like so like that way like I'm looking that definitely by now like multiple person spy agents that have to self would be present all across like the town of Hawkins. And before like it might have been solely like Hopper and his like strict role he imposed on 11 might have been like so factor that might have managed to protect 11 until this point and kept 11 safe. Might have been the case with Luna Resurrection. But like with like on this like very day itself like 11 having solely due to that Maxine with like 11 having even visited like somehow and even visited like Steve like aspirin shop as well. Definitely with friend like Robin might have clearly seen 11. It's definitely might be able so like definitely with friend like right now with like 19 as well as 11 at that 11 house like considering right now it's about this period like 11 will be getting updated and I'm with friend like eventually I'm home and then I'm going to like put into like some kind of like a situation at like some building in like the town of Pocket. You have like I'm going like eventually by the time that the Russian fight agents would be that so that assistance would be trying to like abduct and take away that 11 and transport 11 to like Russia like they will be attempting that like I'm referring to definitely that as like how they are attempt like the jump that they're trying to not be possible for them and probably backfiring and getting destroyed. Like the scenario that I'm saying, and that's like how that will be happening and which is only due to like the like faces kind of like monsters as well as like multi-dimensional dimension like other kinds of like monsters as well, which might be secretly or because of the good might have threat that access so that the black underground underground pathway, which might have also threat or because of the past year. So like and I'm really remember the mission for like maybe this great number of like these kind of different type of like monsters uh, might be like having that effect on like magnet. Might be the case is like a possibility that I'm looking at. So like it would be the collective spreading that might be like affecting like the magnet more and more across like the round of things might be the case that we are looking at. So like I'm thinking like it will be these monsters that will be uh, uh, that I'm the different like these like represent five agents like as they will be trying to like affect along with like 11 maybe as they will be trying to like affect the team as well as like custom along with like 11 from Hawkins to that but yeah they will be trying to like affect and take down away like anything that can probably eventually at that point at that when the seconds running into like these monsters and like these monsters like attacking those that represent by agents and maybe in that attempt to like fight while these monsters which will be like the control inside of the Royal while it will be trying it might be trying to like that's another that I'm saying that these monsters trying to like affect 11 for like the shadow monster to let's try and take control of like 11. So like in that attempt like I'm saying the shadow monster like these monsters under like the control of the shadow monster like for the attacking like those Russian spy agents and that way like the Russian spy agents getting eliminated as well as and that way like 11 getting free and 11 like the moment 11 will be getting free like 11 is probably using some superpowers even though with these new kind of monsters which I'm going to will be running through the bad actors that through them from completely a lot more tougher than the previous monsters. So still I'm like 11, maybe taking out maybe few of them and maybe still that way managing to like escape from these monsters as well. It's like an eventual along with like Steven plus also like an scenario that I'm looking at and my career. Okay, so like definitely for the potential right now with Black 11 right now, accessing the dark void to like try to see how Mike is dealing with Black But like I'm trying to act of Black 11 right now, accessing the dark void would be have like a lot of significant. It's like the scenario that I'm saying, because like back in like season 2 of Black Stranger Things, Black even by 11 had like basically for like after like 11 had fear from like Michael like after like that after saving Mike from that faceless monster back in like the Hawkins school and I was saying like putting that showing that multiple great number of or the of that owned here by like Hopper was like 11 and like Hopper house and like that way for 11 couldn't like meet Mike and like but 11 was like might out like each and every single day like might out I think like without way in that and like 11 witnessing Mike trying to like communicate to that 11 through the radio phone like 11 might have done that each and everything like that new process. But yet like I'm tripping that like I'm tripping still 11 might have managed to like still remain safe from like the clutches of like the shadow monster back then and that reason might have been solely due to like back then like the shadow monster focus might have been solely on Bill alone like on like the control over Bill and totally using Bill like the shadow monster might have been thoroughly overconfident thinking that basically the shadow monster will be easily able to easily able to that achieve its goal of that taking over like have like the battle world front to like the round of token in like the real world as well as like when they get to the real world. When along the lines of that overconfidence the shadow monster might have had back then. So like I'm doing back then like shadow monsters like focus and attention might have never fallen on 11 back then might have been what might have happened to 11 but like since like towards like the end of season 2 of the Stranger Things the fact that like while 11 was like passing the mic at like that ball dance like place like at that point like the fact that like the shadow monster focus and attention was like solely my on that ball building in like the fan world might have been solely due to like from that point on like simply of like 11 and 11 like to compose that made it possible to like for like the destruction of like the plans of like the shadow monster should happen through 11 close of the gate like and since then like I'm doing like 11 might have been a specific high priority target for like the shadow monster since then and this might be so different for like the shadow monster at that point by 11 was like dancing with like Mike at the board like building that the shadow monster being like right at that exact location of that building in like the bad world might have been the case definitely brings so like I'm doing like since then like I'm doing that the current present as like right now 11 is like about to access like the last voice to like see how Mike is dealing with this black breakup like it will be since then it will be only right now that basically element might be accessing like the dark void from like Hopper's might be the case of definitely my difference. So like I'm definitely since according to my difference, definitely the different that even that the abduction of Will in like the past by like the base monster while Will was like hiding in like castle fire in like Japan were like happening as soon as after like as soon after like Will who had really until then managed to like survive and stay away and stay from like the activity of like the base monster in like Japan world until that point that very same Will as soon after like 11 like acts in the dark void and trying to like locate Will in the presence of choice and all of them like using that I think like that whole water cup thing that basically as soon as that Eleven had located Will hiding in the castle by like the fact that like the face is not up and right then itself like soon after Eleven doing that like right then itself like the fact that like the face is not up had captured Will won't be at all sure for instance because like the faces monitor as well the police into like in the past like it has already been revealed that like while anyone had first access like the dark void kind of face through like the experience of Pranner at that point the fact that like anyone had seen like the faces monitor like and the faces monitor back then had subsequent tried to like communicate with Eleven so like the feeling of experience that like the faces monitor would definitely be also having access to like the dark void might be the case definitely might be the empathy either that or like I'm just saying like it might have been a similar situation as to that in like just now that basically with like those rats that basically with like the spreading of like the shadow of the particle like spreading on those rats like sitting in like that rats like totally exploding and turning into that new kind of like monsters like that might definitely be like turning to the scenario might have been that those rats like turning into like shark like monsters might have been the case definitely manufacturing. So definitely I'm referring like such a spreading might have happened in like the past to like the parallel version of like 11 because of like in like the parallel they are being exact building the same kind of building as that of like the buildings in like the real world in like the town of Athens. So then definitely there might have at one point in like the public there might have been just like parallel version of in like the real world in like the parallel world, especially in my consideration. So like and like it might have been like the parallel version of like 11 in like the same past like spreading of like shadows or might have happened and maybe through such a manner like maybe like the maybe that way like the bad version of 11 might have that explosion might have happened and like the bad version of 11 might have turned into like a humanoid space with monster and it might have been that humanoid space with monster that was like trying to like communicate with 11 while through further experiment 11 had first acted like the last word from like the laboratory might have been the case definitely maybe so maybe I'm considering like for like the possibility other possibility that I'm considering for like maybe for to be only that parallel version of event which might have turned into that transformed into that the big monster humanoid monster I don't it might be that monster I don't that might have like the power to like access like the dark void and see whenever like 11 access like the dark void that it being able to see exactly whatever 11 will be seen whenever 11 access the dark void it's like the possibility that I'm considering and that monster may be being under like the control of like the shadow monster it's also like a possibility that I'm looking. So like if that's the case, like it might have been that exact monster, status monster that might have like in an abundant space due to like when accessing the dark world and locating in like the bad world in like castle bias in like the past basically is that easily being visible for like the shadow monster so it's like control or like the humanoid status monster. That exactly humanoid status monster might be the case is like the opportunity that I'm looking at. So like I'm just still since I'm currently like like the shadow monster will be still having that control over that humanoid status monster that exact humanoid status monster. So like I'm doing right now it's like 11 right now from like Hobart House, like 11 right now, acting the dark way to locate Mike. Like I'm doing right now, Mike 11 will be doing that. Like I'm doing definitely Shadow Monster. I'm doing right now to being able to like locate exactly like the hideout, the place, like the home of 11. While 11 will be right now acting in dark way to that locate Mike. Just like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm just maybe like a remote possibility that of like actually right now as like 11 will be trying to like locate Mike like and maybe 11 shortly totally in an unexpected and scary manner like totally with from within like the dark world like it is totally having a surprise like twist of like a scare from like a face from that exact face with monster or like the shadow monster like showing up to like the dark world and 11 shortly getting that jump scare kind of like a situation that possible there. So like I'm like my brain, so like I'm only praying for the possible that there again only like the humanoid spaces monster this might be like this might have been like the transformed version of like the parallel version of 11 in its instant past. You know, being like the only monster that won't be having access to like the dark world and you able to see everything 11 or like I'm thinking that it might be such a scenario where like maybe all the humans with like the span version of humans is like high IQ who exactly in the shadow monster might have targeted and might have might have not eliminated but instead like spread and taken control of while like all humans with like low IQ and medium range IQ might have been eliminated by like the orders of like the shadow monster uh, in like the battle world might have been what might have happened. So like I'm sure maybe because like the possibility of that all the humanoid that's like the only other possibility that I'm trying for like all each and every single one of like the humanoid faceless monsters as well as maybe like faceless monsters that will maybe uh being able to have access to like the dark void and since all of them is like connected, maybe like all of them having access to like the dark void and being able to like choose everything. 11 sees whenever 11 access to like the dark void. There's like the other possibilities that I'm different. Anyway, like I'm like with this act of like 11 searching for Mike, accessing the dark void and searching for Mike, like I'm like 11 like tired of getting found for like the shadow operation. Hopper's house like that being like tired of like this crucial information is getting found out for like the shadow monster and that way like the shadow monster from this point on like Ethan would be acting accordingly connecting to like the stealthy predict of like the underground upside down like the shadow monster like would be like proceeding on that stealthy spreading of like the underground upside down through such a manner when creating like multiple hubs as well so that underground would be proceeding along such a specific direction to having get close and reach like the underground of like the house of like get close to the underground of like the house of like opposite so that like it would with that as well would be able to like maintains control over like the multiple phases once the ranch maybe different kind of ones that might affect like magnet like from like the underground for to be able to like, control it and simply bring it towards like the surface and we have this like long term attack on like elements at like copper house to like attack element and that way to take control of element for like the start of the such an attempt eventually happening. The shadow monster attempting like one of the multiple possibilities that I'm bringing on brain. So totally reimbursement right now as like right now and putting like the dark ways to like see how Mike is going for like the breakup like number 27 also getting another twist with like the way Mike will be like reacting right now where like I'm just like even through that due to that matching when we don't expecting Mike to like feel totally sorry for like and that and sorry and like but you know we don't expecting like Mike to like only to see like Mike totally telling to his like friends that basically he's going to like go back to like out of house and tell sorry to like 11 for like lying to like 11 but 11 will be expecting this by actually like not word and searching for Mike like I'm sort of 11 getting like a sort of twist of like comparison especially since like the fact that like 11 had broken up with like Mike in the situation where like 11 had broken up with Mike even from like the more even being so the situation where like Mike was like so really putting in all that effort to like make up for his like to like element by sorry with and everything. So like I'm due to that breakup of like 11 was Mike would be right now totally triggered and I'm like Mike would be totally doing up like putting in all that effort and basically still like that is like the result he gets like from 11 like basically that's like the what he gets still that's what he gets from 11 that a breakup like so like I'm thinking that might maybe think around this lines and might totally being triggered right now and might totally possibly having this like ego getting in the way and like that totally consulting in that Mike totally right now I'm telling because that basically that Mike from this point on will be like just going to like start making off 11 and basically like eventually 11 is going to like start to like miss Mike and both won't be able to like live without Mike. So like at that point like 11 herself would be like phoning Mike and telling sorry to like Mike would be along the lines of whispering like Mike right now telling to like Lucas and at that point like that like Mike would forget 11 would be along the lines of whispering like in like egoistic manner, like I'm putting that Mike telling Lucas and I'm putting that Lucas at that point maybe telling Mike that won't you miss but if Mike tries to like ignore 11 won't Mike as well miss 11 badly. Could be along the lines, maybe Lucas asking Mike, and I'm like, totally doing like Mike Fibo, like Mike totally denying it, and he will be telling Lucas that like, no, he won't miss 11 at all. So like this, like the conversation that I'm having right now, 11 will be seeing through like the last right as well, like conversation between like Mike and Lucas, like seeing the scenario that I'm saying. And that conversation itself, like would be seriously disappointing for like 11 and might be even triggering 11 as well. And would be creating that ego within 11 as well. And 11 as well will be deciding to like not approach Mike and to probably ignore Mike and to see if like because like 11 will be absolutely certain that this will be definitely Mike who say even by saying all this like to be Mike that will be eventually missing 11 even more and basically will be eventually still will be showing up to like Copper's house to like place, or it might be along the lines that anyone saying it's like one possibility that I'm doing, or like I'm sort of like anyone saying along the lines of like really so like Mike doesn't care about like children at all. And that basically that way like I'm anyone so that like actually to like to have to make her break up with like Mike serious one would be and like so not at all make any contact with that like this line like as like alone would be that ego getting that ego happening for her and basically would become the such situation like maybe at that point being when like this like totally unexpected uh enters to like the dark void by like either like the face smart or like the shadow mind happening and scary that's like the scenario that I'm bringing. So also like the neighbor of the revolution right now, let's go like the current win the modern game that like 11 and Maxina right now playing because to bring that the game has to like how it will be to bring that will be to like the thing. Maxim right now will bring the on that my should determine to like break all the rules that like what pop-up has access for like 11 for her own safety. So like I'm doing definitely that more confidence for it currently present for like not only Maxim but for Maxim that 11 as well. So he would be feeling that more confidence and like the person as like that she's like perfectly safe. So like I'm doing that what maintain as well as 11 right now will be on the mindset to like basically to break the rules of have set for like 11 each and every single day from this point on during the breakup during the breakup of the versions might be the case definitely might be pretty much go like I'm definitely with like the current in the body game like and what like McIntyre would be right now attempting to be to that since like the name in like those cards that they're playing that is in the body since those are names of like people who are connected to their adventures so far, connected to like the bad bird and everything. Since like those are people who are connected, but like remotely connected to their adventures. Mostly are like names of people who are like only remotely connected to their adventures. So like people like that 11 have barely talked that much. Mostly like being like the names of people whom 11 have barely talked to, barely even met or even talked to mostly. So like even that way to like how like so far like mainly like the people that women have interacted with being just like Mike and like mostly Mike and it's being only right now that events like mostly like to such a great extent is even speaking to like Maxine is able to like talk to Maxine and just like so far it was totally just like so far and just Mike alone that one was like mostly having some interaction with like and and since like even in the case as well, like basically, and even while heading out, like basically, them hanging out, like basically, they were like, they were like talking with like, like, was able to only talk with like Quinn as well as like, Lucas as well. Since like the fact that like Substance recently had gone for this like camp as well. So like it might be the reason for like Russell's name as well being chosen with those cards. Since like the last time 11 might have simply had like a certain extent of like conversation with like Nassim might have been back during like season of might have been mostly during that season or might have been the case. So like I'm remembering definitely so like to for like Element to have that fresh interaction with like people who are in a way remotely connected to like Element's like life and Element's like adventures connection to like the bad world. Yet like Element those people who Element had like not much of a chance to like properly interact with to have all that fresh interaction with like all those like different people would be like the reason uh for like Maxine for me. It might be definitely Maxine and Clement right now playing this like for win the bottle game. So like I'm doing the task would be like whichever name that like the bottle ends up with like for like event on the very next day to like simply once again break Hopper in that old and basically along with like Maxine for like 11 to like quickly step out and basically go up to that person and basically to like interact and talk to that person have 11 step out once again. Yeah, to get basically. interact with that person. So like I'm definitely with like the spin the bottle like yeah, I'm definitely in the spin the bottle game like I'm putting like eventually like with like 19 and 11 like taking multiple repeated like attempts at like spin the bottle to try to get the desired person that they find even more interesting. Like I'm also trying so that eventually the spin the bottle game ending up with like the bottle pointing at like exactly Billy. This is like the scenario that I'm thinking. Definitely I can also think along the lines of in a realistic manner as well to have like to crush Billy's ego and to like calm down Billy's aggression as well. Definitely I'm also trying like even though I'm in an extremely realistic and still I'm just like Maxine might be also think that basically that 11 like totally beating Billy and definitely at that point like Billy getting triggered at 11 and maybe Billy trying to act out aggressively against like 11 would be one thing that Maxine would be totally seeing as like an obvious scenario. So like Maxine would be also think that basically in such a scenario with like 11 uses of superpowers and basically humbles Billy like at that point like Billy might even have cases like he was correct even more, especially even after like Billy getting exactly go correct after like 19 had basically in like see the doors when the things had basically uh defeated like Billy in while Billy was fighting against Steve and all them. So that definitely and I'm remembering the deal that like Billy might have made with like Maxine back then might have been like Billy might have agree Maxine might have even blackmailed Billy back then might have been what might have happened because like after like Martin and also had escaped from like that underground upside down, made it back to like the made it back to like the upper sand. At that point, there being a shark right there in front of that definitely might have been Billy's car, and Billy might have followed, made it there by following like the path where like there was always like destruction in like the free public property that was like due to like Mackin's driving might have been the case. So like that might have been like Billy's car that we waiting that was present right outside like that hole underground upside down hole once like Steven also had made it out to like the surface at that point. Back to system might have been the case just limit. So like at that point what Maxine might have been Maxine might have also blackmail like blackmail Billy to like totally reveal the fact that like Maxine had defeated Billy and with like them for like Steve and all of them being like witness to that as well. Like I'm thinking that Maxine might have maybe threatened Steve Billy to like totally not at all, never at all interfere in like Maxine's life and try to like ever control Maxine. And if we even does so that then like Maxine would be like revealing to everyone and like hoping for as for like since like Billy has built up this like image as like that dominant school person at like that at first like school that Maxine might have threatened and blackmailed Billy to like destroy that whole image that Billy has like built up at like open school and reveal about Billy having lost to like Maxine in that whole fight situation. Spread that and leak that social information at that open school might be along the lines like Maxine might have threatened Billy back then and like made Billy back then. Certainly remember so like this might be like the crucial pattern that might have threatened like Billy since then not at all interfering at all and like Maxine life and Maxine being able to like casually step out of her home and basically hang out with her friends, just like normally like Mike and all this stuff. Might have been what might have happened to Liam. But like right now, but even on top of that, like Maxine would be the Liam would be like it would be most likely having to do with like Maxine, like deep down Maxine that love that Maxine would be having towards Billy as like a sister of that Billy. Because like considering Maxine would be deep down totally missing that old Billy who might have been like nowhere near as aggressive as he is. Simply like transferring to like popping might have been the case. And I'm certainly reminded to mention that like testing aggression of that Billy might actually not only be stemming from like the way Billy's father deals with like Billy, but like even more than that, like I'm doing might be actually stemming from like the actual things like the current wife of like Billy and Max's father is like stepmother, like I'm different like Billy as well as Max's like original mother, like I'm different. She might have totally in like President House might have only ended up getting eliminated through a car accident while Billy might have been driving the car, maybe in a careless manner. Might have been what might have happened, and like that guilt might have been explained for Billy at that point. And like I'm looking that even though Maxine might have straight away forgiven Billy, like and then still the father might realize like father might have not forgiven Billy and might have blamed Billy since then, and it might have been that frustration of that, on top of like losing his mother and simultaneously like that extreme blaming like his father might have Billy might have also like Billy getting more and more angry and frustrated with himself, and Billy might have taken on that frustration at like the school back uh it the school in which like Billy and Maxine was studying at that, and basically that way like Billy might have turned into like this like aggressive and yeah, might have been what might have happened, and that way like it might have been like a TC that a transfer like Billy might have hopefully got an express from school due to that Billy like aggressive from like the old school, and that might be how like Billy and Maxine might have ended up in that pocket school. Might have been what might have happened. So like the original old Billy might have been a completely different person who might have had absolutely zero aggression and might have been like so extremely kind and gentle of like a caravan, like that belief, that original belief might be whom that Maxine might be, like Simpson might have been that friendly missing, that loving brother Billy might be whom like Maxine might have been Simpson that friendly missing, even though Maxine might be Maxine would only able to like understand that's the reason for like Billy's aggression and everything. Still, but when Maxine would be badly missing that whole Billy, that whole sort of so like I'm going to get back like I'm given like Maxine right now, only thing of like only like with like the bottle, spinning outside the bottle and delivering without much great like ending up with like it's pointing to Billy, and that's why like Maxine for me think that it would be a great idea to like uh, to have like Maxine I mean like to have 11 like go talk to like Billy and basically casually without that without showing any fear to like Billy as like coming out even be acting towards like Billy uh, and basically for like to have like 11 for me in a free and casual manner like interact with Billy, and at that point like if that Billy isn't maximum not expecting like they need to like totally get triggered and basically Billy trying to take out with like aggression. So like at that point to like have 11 use of superpowers, and that way to like stop Billy and to like humble Billy, and that way to destroy Billy's like his ego and aggression. That way be possible, and that way like the old Billy like her old product Billy as to like how Billy was back for Billy was back before they might have lost their mother, like to get that old loving and kind Billy back, also probability back, like on the like Maxine Coffee, deciding that it would be a great idea to like have 11 like talk to Billy. So like that way like the whole interaction between like 11 and Billy happening. It's like living the scenario that I'm going to bring. And definitely I'm going to bring like there will be definitely that like the playable screen like Prana will be right now would be thoroughly in that go down like I'm still thinking the imagine of like a highly likely possibility that like if even that girl that really had abducted and brought to like that go down like seeing this like monster like that might have been possibly one of like the members of like the army that like of like say humans that run of over their experience might have created like using the hallucination power like causing like a hallucination to that woman which that woman might have seen when in actuality belief won't be like at all, might not be having like any spreading of like the particular like the shadow monster like happening at all with like Billy and the friends won't be at all under like the control of the shadow monster at all, and like what that monster that the had that abduction girl had seen in like the golden was leading only like the visual hallucination created by like one of like Brenna's like team members of like army individuals of like abandoned humans from like the real world instead of human power like 11 might be the case with the remember so like using that so like I'm sure in like army members of like one are like there will be multiple uh individuals of the like each having like unique kind of powers, so like I'm just using the unique powers like I'm from there would be like repeatedly creating like visual hallucination to Billy as well, and that might be only what like Billy will be seeing as like this, or might have seen engines like arm as like spreading like happening into arms, and that won't be actual real spreading, but like that will be only visual hallucination created on Billy to like that way controls Billy and always to because like Billy Pranga will be seeing as like should be only aware of like a certain range of situations which will be in which like the form would be in about which actually one will be aware of. So like Prana's like absolutely high priority right now would be to like take out because as soon as possible create like a huge army of like superhumans and basically to go up to like the battlefield and fight and take out like the shadow monster as soon as possible. And that way like fame happiness might be like Prana's plan right now is definitely necessary and everything. So like definitely I'm going to bring like from that border like location where like Prana's current present base is like the real world increase and expands his like army of superhumans. So like like uh, that girl that really had affected and brought to like that program would be right now already like the experiment also might have already again might be the case right now. It's definitely not so like a runner would be like also using among like army team like he will be using like individual with like superpowers to create like to remotely create like visual hallucinations to like Billy and that way like control Billy and like to have Billy like take the orders of like runner. Might be what might be happening right now with the new member. But like definitely everything Billy will be doing right now would be remotely getting viewed by like the superhuman members of like Brother Army team. Might be the especially necessary. So like that way like I'm saying right now like the bot feeling right now ending up with like the bottle like ending up pointing towards like Billy and that Maxine only telling Maxine and 11 only deciding to like go up to and meet Billy and like that way like the next day when they will meeting Billy and like talking to Billy like and at that point after that impact like I'm definitely run up. Maybe at that point Brother totally like only shockingly seeing getting excited to like see 11 like and then like that way like totally placing that as good target on 11 like even though runner should be well adapted to something that like 11 is like alive to the person like due to like 11 being the person to like close very towards like the end of that season towards spring training. So like I'm spring runner will be totally and like the person runner will be actually well and clear that 11 is still alive. Yeah, like runner might have been desperately searching for like 11 exactly trying to like locate 11 because I was in Mary, like in none of like the I mean like the army team so the team of like superhuman of like Brunner, like none of them might have been able to like attain or gain like regardless of another experiment, like none of them might have had like the high enough of like a level of IQ to be able to attain like the powerful access to the dark web might have been what might have happened to him as a present. So like definitely Brunner might be showcasing us like if he gets like he's able to like find 11 like getting that power to access the dark web with that much of like an experience advantage for like Brunner to progress in his black hole goes to like, create like a standard create an even bigger army of like superheroes to take down and the government of the criminal return. On top of that, like Brenner will be probably influencing the thing and organizers like really still with like Brenner possibly by now having created like an army of like the still 11 will be like still like the strong uh even stronger than like he's one of them. It might be along the lines Brenner will be only thing definitely this is the person the like Brenner will be only the price like find 11. So like I'm doing definitely while 11 will be talking to like Billy like at that point like that one of like superhuman in that one team would be like remotely creating that hallucination or like one another superhuman member of like army member of like one team that would be like remotely viewing everything Billy would be seeing. So like I think like the only remote kind of that remote kind of power would be such that basically everything Billy sees that like superhuman member of like runner would be also able to see. That would be like only that power, like how that power would be definitely memory. So like I'm still in the mention that like accessing to like the dark world and basically being able to like locate anyone that power that anyone has would be so seen as absolute precious for like runners, but like none of like runners like superhuman army team individuals that none of them will be have something that power definitely memory. So while Billy will be will be interacting with Billy like and through Billy eyes like something that like one of like superhuman team member of like runner will be seeing what like Billy would be seeing at that point, and basically would be at that point straight away telling runners that they have located 11 at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm looking. So like from that point on, of course, like the runner as well, totally on that on the same of like on top of like the function by agents are positioning like runner as well being on the stage of like 11 like the scenario that I'm and especially with like 11 just now having even access like to the dark void to locate my from that 11 that house at like from 11 and Hawker's house like I'm figuring definitely that way like the shadow monster as well might by now might have totally found out like the base of 11. So like I'm doing like these three group of like these three forces like group that really being on the quest to like capture 11 like Russian spy agents as well as like in Hawkins as well as like foreigner and just like so humans as well as like the shadow monster as well would be these three groups would be the way to like capture 11. It's like the scenario that I'm looking over. So like I'm doing like even after like 11 will be talking to like Billy, like I'm looking like Billy totally acting in an extremely strange manner and I'm looking like Billy not on getting aggressive towards like 11, but like Billy will be shocked at seeing 11 and like Billy will be totally acting in like a strange manner at that point. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. And Billy would getting shocked at seeing 11 is like the scenario that I'm looking at. And the reason would be due to that messages being remotely sent to like Billy through that the bomb were controlled by remote kind of like a control on Billy by that one of like was a human member in like honesty might be. along the lines like instantly like that message on the friend that will be given to Billy by 11 will be considered to believe that basically to stealthily follow 5 on 11 and 4 on 11. Like the scenario that way like I'm thinking that even after like 19 and 11 will be quite 11 will be possibly like I'm really acting in like a strange manner and I'm going to like 19 probably noticing how it's being strange to be with like acting. So Matthew will be obviously instantly at that point I'm like that was an argument I think will be feeling seriously off as in like something seriously off with actually. So like I'm thinking then like Mackin and 11 that for me it will be leading at that point, even really at that point, but like I'm still believe that that app still would be following 11 and Mackin all the way to like the point of like fully eventually like entering like the pop terminal and finding that the base of like 11 like Hopper's house is like the scenario that I'm moving over. At that way like through one of the flex superhumans like that remote control of the like and doing that for finding out like the location like the hideout like the game of like element being on a sound is like in the scenario very much like on ring. Okay, so like definitely point of the reference right now, but like the skin the body game that my general 11 is playing being only to like just locate through the dark void like the people that run the paper like I'm especially talking like right now 11 like as like 11 is like about to that access the dark void and basically locate really like right now because like 11 is like the shocking thing that which I'm definitely talking 11 will be seeing right now through like the dark void by trying to like locate Billy and the will be like a scenario where like I'm looking like Billy will be like standing in that bottom like location and up something like there will be this like table like kind of a bed and basically there will be that where that like Billy had a better on that kind in like an different kind of like a situation and there will be like Pranav standing right there who will be like talking to like Billy and after there will be a group of people like basically group of individuals like standing behind Pranav and like their faces are different, like not being clear to like 11 like the right now in like the this like person are that so like the people that like will be close standing close to like will be present close to like Billy would be like the ones that will be clearly visible for like 11 is like person up there so like that way 11 getting like the biggest shock with like 11 seeing like while trying to face Billy like 11 seeing Billy and the like a better seeming kind of like a girl in like a kind of situation and this is the biggest shock being like Pranav who is like standing right there, like doing like like the shocking twist of like an scenario that I'm looking at happening right now in my opinion. And at that point, I'm also bring like for like it was shockingly remembering like the words of like Ray Carroll back in like season 2, like the words that the dialogue that like Ray Carroll that had basically told 11 and Kelly that basically Pranav is still alive, that basically 11 slowly remembering that and basically realizing that basically Ray Carroll was like telling the truth to them that uh to that absolute certainty like 11 realizing that right now. It's like the scenario that I'm bringing on today. Yeah, so like actually by the interesting right now, that's for like 11 right now, for like the dark web by searching for actually that 11 is like kind of stuff, don't be afraid and stay very still. Like it won't be said by Billy, but might have been told by Pranav during that point. It's the 11 so because of that Billy having like while 11 had searched for like Billy through the dark web, like Billy was like turning the other side. So like that way 11 not seeing Billy talk as well as like 11 never having until now, I think that 11 having not met Wendy or even heard this like voice at all. And definitely I think like even might would probably assume that it was Billy that was saying those dialogues of don't be afraid, stay very still. So it will soon be over. Like when in actuality it might have been run up or might have been performed right there at that around that time while doing the like experiment to have like that girl gain like superhuman strength. It might have been run up like something to look like experiment that might have said this dialogue of like don't be afraid of stay very still which like 11 might have assumed that it was not believed that had said those kind of might have been the case is definitely might have been the rate. So definitely like so like definitely my impression right now is definitely for like the case of Billy like I'm definitely through kind of experiments on like Billy like and that's considering like definitely the fact that like Billy initially in that bottom area like the fact that like Billy got damaged and Billy was like pulled into that godown like basically all that might have been through one among like the superhuman army team members of like not having that using that telekinesis powers to like only pull to attract and pull Billy into that godown. Might have been what might have happened and like it might have been a similar kind of like one of the of like a similar kind of like telekinesis power using with which that one of like the other team members superhuman team members of that runner might have been patiently waiting on the side of that go down to like probably capture someone and basically to experiment on to begin by experimenting on someone and basically using that person to like and sending that person to like a bit more individuals and bring more individuals to like the go down to like slowly build up the army of like and that someone might have by fear conscious might maybe but it might have been close to your conscious might have ended up being the might have been what might have happened to Stephanie might have been very interesting. WM basically my good remission that like there will be absolutely no spreading of like the spreading of like sort of like particles of like the in neither Philly or that would be even happening in neither that girl that Philly has just now abducted as well. Definitely my opinion. It could be solely like Brenner due to that Brenner going to like experiments and that way giving that superpowers like to Philly as well as that girl that will be happening right now. Through this experience might be what might be happening right now. Certainly my observation. But like right now, even for like the relation that like Philly of like Philly being able to like see Eleven as like Eleven was like accessing the dark void and searching for like Billy and searching for Billy and was like Eleven saw Billy in like the dark void. The fact that Billy as well was able to like see Eleven. Like I'm considering that might have been totally deductive due to the experiment of that runner, which might have been to the experiment that runner might have done on Billy might have been to for like to see if like Billy can attain like the very exact same power of that experiment to like not only just access the dark world but to like locate anyone from like the dark world. But like I'm going like regardless of all the experiment like regardless of the army of individuals that runner might have of superhumans that runner might have done the experience on like so that each on each and every single one of them Brand might be desperate to that attain that to have any single one of like just like individuals of just like elements of like super or like basically gain that power of exactly gain succeed in that experience and gain that survive and succeed in that experience and attain like power of being able to like locate remote locate in one through like the dark web but like that experience might have failed for each and every single one of them, including Philly as well might have been the case definitely yet like partly like the access to like the dark web might have maybe I'm thinking that Philly might have not sure been able to like even access at all to like the dark web, but like what might happen might have been like definitely like why someone would be like why element access like the dark web and basically why element purpose for Philly like basically at that point like Philly would be able to like sense that like to even though for this experiment on Philly to achieve that power of like the remote location through the dark web might have failed like still hardly it's like effort like might have happened on Philly where like believe might be having that might have gained that power that is through which like whenever element that whenever element or like anyone like actually like the dark word and tries to like locate belief that basically at that point like Billy will be able to like sense that. So exactly my position example. So definitely I'm referring this to not only be the case for Billy, but like I'm referring like this probably being the case that partly the dark word at super might have happened not only for Billy, but like also for like among like the remaining superhuman team army that for enough might have created by now. That they might be also able to like send 11 point like with 5 on them to like the northward. Might be the case, especially my vegetarian. And my vegetarian not for like Billy on realizing like 11 is like spying on Billy through like the northward. At that point, Billy is staring in front of like 11. That as well as maybe. Uh, being possible for that belief. Maybe that might have been something that might have just not happened like by accidentally at that point, but like it might have been something that really might have like the superpower to be able to let go consciously and might have done consciously. So like the minimum premission that it's like the episode name itself it's like the missing of like the case of like the missing like like I'm different like definitely once like Maxine will be returning back home, like definitely Maxine will be looking for like really but actually on their return back home at all. And I'm looking like feel you that way, definitely obviously the safest like scenario that I'm doing. And like at that point like Maxine will be seeking the help of like Eleven and asking Eleven to like once again to access the dark word and search for the but like I'm doing like the next time Eleven will be doing that and trying to like search for like really the 11 won't be able to like locate the at all. And I'm going to assume that's an absolute shock for 11 because of like after gaining that power to access anyone through like the dark world, like I'm thinking that first time such a challenge will be arriving for like 11 where like 11 won't be able to like locate the person through like the dark world. It's like the scenario that I'm doing, and that will be something that we need through like so far that we need would have gained through like the experiment of would be like consciously doing like constantly cutting off the billions like accessibility of like being able to like searchable like any other payment or like elements from like the last play. Like that's totally happening with like really consciously using the like super war and like disabling that possibility for 11. So such a manner, like the scenario that I'm looking at. So that as well, I'm trying would be exactly according to like the order of that being given to the movie. Might be the case, it's definitely not in the so probably like this scenario, because like I'm totally putting like from the plan would be to like basically but that app would tell to like usually affect events would be like from the plan using like Prana's like army of superhumans might be like Prana's plan. So definitely going to the generation go like definitely use it only according to like Prana's orders to like really as well as like to like definitely cut off the accessibility of like 11 to like such possibility because like Prana will be probably wanting to like prevent 11 from like repeatedly searching for Julian Billy that way actually ending up that way Brenner actually ending up getting caught in like the vicinity of like 11 while 11 will be searching for me. So that like basically that way that since like if that happened to like 11 will be keeping her guard up for like an eventual attempt by Brenner to abduct 11 so like to prevent that from happening and that way for like one of to eventually be able to like that up that would be able to like and this kind of like a scenario to be able to like affect like 11 would be enough plan especially my friend so like to have that the couple for runner might be the sole reason for like possibly this order to possibly might have been given to delayed by runner might be the case especially my friend so like that way I'm still thinking of my friend that like from this point on like whenever 11 will be accessing the dark void and trying and searching for Billy and trying to like locate Billy for the dark void like everyone won't be able to like find Billy like dark void is like scenario which is scenario that I'm super against sitting on the military. Okay, so like the new reaction right now as well, like Papa right now finding out like 11 haven't gone for like sleepover at like 19 phone and basically 11 still not at all like worried about it like I'm just referring so like in like the person like it could be like the only role that Papa right now might have placed for 11 will be only to like not at all go to like locations where like it's like only the people that's like in city in like totally public areas where like there are like very the number of like people like the mall as well as like in like the city street of like the town of Belon would be like the only areas where like 11 would be that according to like the present updated role of like of might be for the from going to might be the case especially when students might be the reason for like 11 even going with like my and while the had showed up like the fact and while the film was trying to like show the report the fact that like I think that 11 during that point I think was like Dustin's hope and like basically like the fact that 11 along with like Mike had basically gone up to like the Mount and so like with like 11 casually leaving a note saying that like 11's going for like sleep or at like matching home as well like so like all this would be like okay allowed as part of like the updated code of that proper right now as long as like the front of like 11 sleep or happening at like the house of like a female friend of like 11 like as long as that condition like that's why like even sleep or will be like perfectly fine for like proper even while like the sleep or it's not at like a proper house in like the box might be the case of definitely my prevention. It might be the reason for like Hopper right now definitely being so casual about like even that sticky note saying that 11 is that has head of for like sleep or like Mexico. Okay, so like definitely my prevention right now is for like Joyce right now believing as for like the last state magnetic field being present in like token through some experimental technology and the different experimental technology creating this like last scale magnetic field might have been what might have been shown in like the very beginning of like history of range of things that like advanced highly advanced feeling like highly technologically advanced feeling this like machine that was shown in like the beginning trying this like the like the available framework that way uh, the attempt to like create like the shape from like the lab and like like something that might have been like an attempt to like, create like through like the magnetic field and attempt to like totally create like a portal like connecting like the energy laboratory in Russia and like Hawkins might have been the case of the Liverpool train because of like the involvement of like military officers and this they are like mentioned about like China and everything like so like a different that definitely might have been an attempt for like a takeoff without and like transport between like countries without borders might be what and that way through such a stealthy infiltration to attempt a takeoff might be what like the plans of like the military force might be in like the web series of Stranger Things might be the case definitely might be the reaction. So So like my temperature for like that different situation might have been like even it might have been in like the beginning of like the previous year that I'm referring like the whole beginning stages for like the whole building of like the mall in like the town of Hawkins might have begun certainly monitoring. So like Mayor Client might be certainly monitoring because he's like and not even able to be corrupt like Mayor Client might have only accepted a huge bribe from suspicious people and basically for like the construction of like the mall in like Hawkins might have been what might have happened to the premise. So like anticipating that those people might be connected to like the scientists and their mission to create that passageway, which might be like create that passageway to like this energy bottle like gate from like the energy laboratory in like Russia to Hawkins might be the case certainly might be the So like I'm thinking that there could be like an exactly like a similar machine that was like revealed in like the very beginning of like season three in like the energy laboratory in like Russia. Like I'm sure there might be a similar exact kind of like a machine that might have been with that just and so bribery might have been still here and for towards like Hawkins as well. And like that too, like the small could be most likely an excuse to hide that secret lab and like that machine, which might be totally present beneath like the mall in like Hawkins might be the case supplements. So like beneath that mall like in Hawkins, like I'm saying there might be totally stealthy underground lab and which would be containing so like machine hidden by making exactly like the one in like the energy laboratory in like Russia might be the case and like they like it would be like through that healthy kind of communication between like step to like kind of the level of brain like but yes simultaneously like and like this like beams might be getting shot to like the wall in like the ground location like Falcon as well as like the energy level brain like but yeah but and that will like create like a passageway through which like the robots there would be able to like infiltrate into like pockets by bypassing like the boundaries without with that absolute stealth. And that way, like eventually, like the current thing in like mission that they would be doing in like Hawkins would be only a test because like their actual pro project would be to do the same thing in China. Might be the case certainly might be the answer and to attempt like that absolute takeover might be the case certainly in like at their board in like connecting to like in like the web series of like the Stranger Things web series might be the case certainly might be the answer. So like the membership where like it might have been on like the beginning of like the previous year that like the beginning stages of like the building of like the mall in like how it might have began and right then itself I'm looking like there might have been product even from way back then because of like the citizens of like how it might have totally seen like the eventual scenario of like the possibility of like them all like once like the mall would be built like them all losing their job and everything. So like I'm sure that might have been product even since back then to like the stop sector building of sector mode, which might have been like which might have been like stopped by like mere client owners and like Opos and all that might have been what might have happened. And that way like the mode might have been built and like mere clients even to like the person who be only unaware of like the actual intent behind like the mode being built to hide like that underground like energy laboratory beneath it with that highly advanced machine to create that passageway between the technology like in Russia and like how it might be the case that leak might be able to do that this like machine in like the which might probably exist in like that underground area beneath like the mall might be might be the reason for like all the magnets across like the town of Hawkins like being getting affected especially might be the region as well as even the fact that like while in like the beginning, like while Mike and Lucas and all of them were watching like the movie in like the theater in like the mall, like the fact that like the power outage happened and like the fact that the power outage that had happened across like the town of Hawkins like happened began from like the mall as well. Which would definitely connected to like the underground energy laboratory possibly, but that has to still beneath the mall and like it will be connected to like that power outage might have happened connected to that power outage might be totally connected to the whole functioning of like and the testing of that highly advanced machine in that underground area and of the laboratory area. Opinions like the mall might be the case certainly might be correct. So like right now with like George just really wanting Hopper to like go with her to like the Hawkins and of the laboratory and of the laboratory enough to like see if like there's like any experiments going on there like I'm definitely that the experiments going on there like I'm definitely them like neither Hopper nor Joyce not finding anything at all in like the energy laboratory in like energy laboratory of that one of that scenario that I'm looking at. The place while Hopper and Joyce will be showing up there like I'm putting the Billy Owens as well would be the and that point is like the scenario and they will be having like an interaction with like Owens where like Owens as well without that need by now would have something and just like find in like the energy laboratory would have by now only to be fully aware of like the issue with like the magnets and about like the magnetic field and everything, but like them as well might have definitely not been able to like pinpoint as to like where exactly that how exactly that's like happening or like from where exactly is like the source, which like even owns as well a bit would be thinking that as it like it's like it might be only some highly advanced like machine like operating in like self somewhere in like the energy somewhere in like pocket the town of pocket, but like and the people like owns and Steve might be even to the person might be on that manical sprint to like find out where exactly it is from that from which that where exactly that machine highly advanced machine is selected and from where exactly it is that like the this like highly powerful like magnetic field is like happening within like the round of and everything. But like on and like then Steam will be like still even to the person will be on like that update to like find out that source of that highly powerful magnetic field that's causing like the magnets to like this like power and everything, but like they'll still have might have not been able to like make any sort of like a relevant progress as to like figuring out the exact location as to like where is like the highly powerful magnetic field some like the scenario that I'm using on. So like my consideration questions for like this being what like one would be telling to that Hopper and Joyce once they will be usually showing up to like they're not in about it or points of like the scenario that I'm looking at that point I'm looking like Joyce totally at that point I'm looking like Hopper totally believing Joyce, but like I'm looking like in the case of Joyce like I'm looking Joyce won't be at all believing Owens like Joyce will be the only thing that like Owens will be sort of basically up to something and will be only lying about it to like Joyce and Hopper and secretly some sort of like a stealthy experiment and suspicious experiment might be going on from within like the from within like seven of your owns might be along the lines of like a conclusion that those will be coming down. But like a different Hopper on the other hand, it would be totally interesting like the words of Owens and like Hopper on the different on the other hand, we would only believe that like they were like Hopper and seeing like Owens like had only signing that paper to like Hopper and basically it's like Owens having done so much for like Hopper and basically have signed that paper like 311 and all that like basically so like Operan was trying to be thoroughly trusting and believing that Owen is good and like Operan is totally even though at that point Operan will be totally believing Joyce as for like the existence of like something suspicious going on in like the town of Hogan. Like still Operan is only believing that Owen is good that maybe it's definitely won't be having has really anything to do with like Owens and not the laboratory, but like it will be like the suspicious activity of like the magnetic field will be happening from somewhere within like the town of Hogan. We are trying to a conclusion that like properly coming down to by George would be still have direct information on Owens and like sign the like another about your own like it's an arc that I'm sorry. So like I'm maybe I'm referring like eventually it since like I think like since like Independence Day in that the series of Stranger Things like basically coming up like I'm doing most likely being on that very day that I'm referring like of as well as those possibly getting that as those clue as to like where exactly it is like from this location from within like the town of Hawkins from where like this like two magnetic field is coming from the it actually being from like the north somewhere from like the north India along the lines of the current like copper as well as like those that figuring out on that very day of like Independence Day is like giving the scenario that I'm referring and as for like right now the same question as for like the whole situation of like Dustin as well as Steve like I'm definitely I'm still thinking about the current that like and that message, that code of message that basically that we can give like I'm delivering the plea, which contain like that basically the cell box gas feed like which will be referring to that like sort of person that like military like Europe and everything. Kind like that showed up to like the end of the laboratory in like Russia might be the case definitely my brother. So like it might be referring to like for that code message as like silver cat and then we can fearing that the survival like possibly so it might be telling that the survival depending on like the flow means like the yellow in like stuff that's like basically that is referring to like these two kind of the laboratory performance in like the end of the laboratory in Russia as well as like the stealthy end of the laboratory which might be present in like the underground location of like the mall like these two forces like meeting and coinciding and meeting and making that contact if like through that magnetic field, high magnetic field or something like that machine, if that machine, if like testing works out perfectly before like the end of next deadline of like the year, like to believe that functioning of like the testing of that like high level machine like ends up becoming successful before like the deadline of the year, like that would be what refers to like that goes means the yellow in the so like that goes to a process that's like trying to that they are trying to create like those process needs perfectly meet the future and then at that point that the pathway will be like a dimension problem like pathway will be getting open where like they will be able to like steadily make that travel between like the energy level and like that energy level between like the more in like okay uh, uh, modern object might be like the case exactly my three understand that might be what would be that the meaning behind that what is that so like that definitely about the right now like that underground kind of the laboratory possibly existing beneath like that mod in that Hawkins like and so definitely that message as well might have been exactly sent not at like any location it's within like the town of Hawkins, but like that foreign message might have been sent on exactly that location where like Steve had uh, um, and basically reveals that like same and that music in like the message being existing within like that mod. It might have been from that very exact location that like one of like the Russian spy agents might have and that sent that message. But even the premise so like this is like by the time that he has given this out like Steve Anderson was like I think that was all alone in like the model that were during the night time. Even after the small set, I think and close that but like them being in the process of like Robin who might also be like a secret Russian spy agent. So like I'm very definitely Robin at that point said that either Robin herself might have only that not unconscious for Steve as well as Justin and might have abducted them and might have put them into like brought them to like the underground kind of the laboratory location beneath like someone and might have put them into like an kind of like log kind of situation in that underground kind of the laboratory location beneath like someone might be what might have happened by now. So like this would be might be like the current situation of both the Steve as well as Justin right now. It's definitely my consideration right now. Okay, so like we were reaction right now as for like after like suppose board of incident like really having this like sensitivity towards like sunlight and really containing like ice packs and everything like I'm definitely the reason would be like the sole reason I'm still recommend the remission that believe that we won't be having like any spreading of dangerous like certain amount of happening on belief might definitely not be the case, especially in a prediction book. The sole reason would be like it would be like the parallel version of belief who might have lived the majority of like the parallel version of beliefs like in like the parallel world without totally void of any sunlight. So like I'm different that this might be the reason for like I'm different definitely and it will be that parallel version of belief that will be like creating all this like visual hallucination for like belief and remotely creating all this visual hallucination for Billy and that will be the even controlling remote controlling Billy as well might be the case with the film memorable. So like due to lack of control of like the real world belief of me happening to or in one manner fight backwards mentally who might be lack of thinking of cause through run of experiments like I'm different that it might be due to this reason, like because the controls in the real world really happening through like possibly it might be happening through like the remote control by like the bad version of the who's not at all who won't be like would I do it like not close to like sunlight at all. So give the reason for like Billy as well feeling that same feeling and basically not being able to after that go down when not being able to like handle sunlight and basically feeling having like the need to like root cause ice pack and this might be the reason for like Billy always like since after like the go down incident Billy always like appearing to the like Billy's face and everything like Billy's face always appearing to be that like a face we all due to like the ice pack like you always using like the ice pack on his like touching his like rubbing his face with like the ice pack and everything to keep himself cold while stepping outside. And yeah, like I'm pretty so this only due to like the remote control of like the valve really on like the real world really might be the sole reason for like really has to do for the okay so like definitely the reaction right now for like let's say revealing for like not just fertilizers but like pesticides like clean supplies as well as like diesel fuel going missing like the past 2 days like I'm saying that certainly won't be like sure that would not really share points with certainly not correct because like by the traditions definitely since like that Pokemon had basically revealed that like those rats were like infected rats were like eating like the fertilizers like that might have been the act of like through like control of like remote control of like the channel and stuff. by controlling the rats to and making the rats eat like the fertilizers to like transport like the fertilizers to like the underground upside down, which might have been spreading it might have started spreading from like at some point from like the past year. Might have been like a year so like the points of like the underground upside down like for like it's like fast for space in which like it spread through Hawkins like basically it's like period like space of like spreading to that space it would be like the reason for like the rats using like the fertilizer under like the control of the government. So might be the case still on the operation, but like still all that happening within like a few days, like that might have been just by sheer coincidence because like different like it might have been just like a few days back that like maybe that the shadow monster might have like bottom spread up. Because like I'm definitely the spreading of it underground spread down might have been and like the wine might have been happening or like the cause of like the past year. So like I'm putting that definitely eventually the shadow monster might have not faded. So like I'm sure until that point like I'm sure it might have been dark like monster and like the control of the shadow monster might have been in charge of like the taking of like the underground upside down beneath like the town of Hawkins and the spreading of it and all that stuff need my friend. But like I'm going to speed on things up like I'm going to channel of might have decided to like just a few days back might have been like channel might have not faded that during like the channel and losing patients like the channel might have also decided to like once it got control of like the dust particles like laying on like go around like and like so like the process of like underground upside down like it might have decided to also use frequencies to that way control attract and control trans even in that real world aspect in like some of it and that might have only happened to few days back might have been expected it might be solely due to like that of the limitations and basically that way that getting that due to like solely due to the challenges of the limitations like to increase like the pace of things spreading of like the wine in like the round of the around like the offering those control of fans to like only consume fertilizers and bring fertilizers towards like that underground wines to really speed of growth. But like at the same time, by sheer coincidence and different might have been shown that it's like time that I'm like runner and just like a team of like an army of like superhuman group run of experience like might have showed up from the space in like the Talbot to like the real world to like certainly gather up uh, many more that individuals from like the town of Hawkins by simultaneously instantly affecting like individuals from like the town of Hawkins and to frequently play that runners like army because like Bellroman only availably aware of for like the progress that like the shadow monster like making so like to quickly stop like and eliminate like shadow monster using like runners like arming of like so supplement before it's like too late to save Hawkins and like send that to the real world might be the reason for like runner able to bring like points and by sheer points like and it, to a certain extent might not even be sheer points because like it might have been like due to like the shadow monster like stepping up his game and like increasing the pace of like spreading of the damage side on that like Colonel Russell might also that to like that he has like no time left because like I'm looking like to find individuals from like the battle but survivors like from like the battle might have been an extremely hard task of like profit like with documents might have been extremely hard for kind of like as well might have done like step up the game and that will in front of people like having like superhuman like might have showed up to the real world and might have showed up to coincidentally might have ended up showing up to that exact uh, personally might have ended up showing up to that exact product where like the particular program for like I'm assuming they are like using like the same document to do like of like for the screen like might have got rid of like that shadow monster that the particle that was something that like that got on might have been what might have happened and then like it might have been run up sending this like army of superhuman individuals for those stealthy missions during night time and it might have been them that might have like stolen like pesticides as well as like cleaning supplies as well as like pesticides as well as cleaning supplies as well as diesel fuel and diesel fuel will be only meant for like the cars of like Billy, especially to like while controlling Billy to like have Billy affect individuals from like the down portion like by using Billy's car like basically that way the residual will be meant for like Billy's car as well as like the pesticides as well as like as well as like the pesticides as well as cleaning supplies might be meant to like clean up and get rid of like the wines that might have been present in that godown because like that godown in depth for like and it's like used for humans to like have their base set up in that godown. So like to clean up that to certainly clean up that godown because like by the time they had sold up like it might have been due to like the like the last particle of the shadow or something that something like that go around like and different might have been for me extremely dirty that bottom might have been a dirty mess inside with like also there being like a lot of points all across that interior of like that bottom might have been the case to like the pesticide might be meant to like get rid of those points on the interior and to like clean up like that interior of like the globe water might be the reason for like the clean supply but so like this might be what might have happened and this might be the reason for like like the fertilizers all these other things as well going missing might be what might have happened depending on the okay, so like definitely my vegetarian right now as for like the finance deal, like searching for like Russian by agents and like the mall and the fact that like Robin haven't up that good or anything like that of no trade. Like so definitely the reason would be I'm considering right now that like Robin definitely won't be at all having any sort of connection to like the Russian by which is like the scenario is like my vegetarian scenario for right now. It's definitely my vegetarian because like like definitely and that would be the sole reason for like a Robin not at all capturing or like abducting or like imprisoning like neither person and it's definitely my consideration because like definitely like it might be by sheer coincidence alone that like Robin known Russian. It's definitely my consideration. So definitely Robin and so like Robin might actually be from Hawkins himself and like Robin's like accent and everything like Robin definitely won't be a Russian and like will be someone from Hawkins itself. It's definitely my so like Robin's accent would be like genuine. Robin would be just another citizen of like around Hawkins might be the case. It's definitely my but that's really no connection at all to like the Russian spies and definitely I would write it, especially with like Steve as well as Dustin like wrote us like Steve and Steve and Dustin like even knowing like that secret code message as well as like Steve even figuring out that like the possibility of like it being from like the mount or even from like the town of Hawkins that like that message has been sent and they the fact that like Robert even to the person like basically have not bothered to like attack Steve or in certain like Steve and Dustin through a stealthy manner like will be definitely due to like Robin having absolutely no connection at all to like the Russian spy agent might be the case definitely mentioned. Okay, so like definitely not very interesting right now as for like for build right now getting orbit and with like my candy but I'm preferring like even way more than to like it begins like my than like build book right now. So angry with and I'm like maybe out of like builds like frustration with it because like I'm feeling like back when like elements had like broken up said that she broke up with like my and like some more like I'm feeling like secretly will might have been totally happy about it might feel like the case that Newman and it might be due to like since like the very beginning of like the show itself like like we might have had basically had like massive crush on Mike about which with Mike even to the person would be only and probably unaware of it certainly man so while Mike will be only seen when at like just like good great friend like when 100% will be basically having a massive crush on Mike will be being Mike more than just like a great friend uh is that might be the case definitely one of the records. So like I'm like definitely that Will might have seen that 11 breaking up with like Mike just for fun as like which like Mike as well as Lucas Payton seriously will as well might have seen that as like 11 seriously breaking up with like Mike might have seen in a similar manner might have been the case that might have happened. Certainly like I'm like at that point like Will might have seen that situation as like Will like has no opportunity to like probably to that get my to that eventually to fall forward might have been the case. It's definitely my favorite. So like I'm playing like the sport campaign and game and everything like I'm looking like will something like right now. If we're trying to like bring my back to like how he was that uh where before like elements showing up had shown up to their life to definitely my friend. But like will might simply have that massive crush on my into the person and will might want them to like but now with like 11 going like will be seriously have good trust and quickly trying to like get my to totally fall for them and this like again that and like this might have all been like things about my that like will might have like so much like the fact that in like service about like and might love this game so much like and I'm definitely so like through this game like and like will might be the trying to like turn my to back to like how he was in like the past and basically then for will to like slowly express just like uh, took like series of opportunity towards like my mind free what will my plan is definitely my friends. So like yet like with like Mike as well as like Lucas like that totally running off to like the phone thinking it's like 11 and all that like I'm feeling that the fact that like Mike still has like has not moved on from 11 like fact that that's like hard to obvious to win right now. Like the person like I'm doing this is what be what like will be actually angry right now. Like the person will be angering will like the most is definitely my consideration. Like this will be something losing mic will be something that will be like sit down will be extremely painful for well. So like I'm doing like even by my 10, 11, 12 actively in the relationship like I'm just like that at that point like I will secretly might have been extremely disappointed and like might have been feeling sad about like losing my to 11 and basically feel might have due to that with like opposite towards like might which might have like reached like the point of like an answer positiveness towards like might like the sound like will might have been desperately the sound wishing for like might and 11 to like eventually end up breaking up it's definitely my totally impression. So that this might be the case and it might be the reason for like being raised towards like Mike and Lucas right now, where that even way more than Lucas it will be like Mike that will be that will be seen as that 21 and race would be like right now actually towards Mike. And only predict for like Mike to like eventually find out about the like thing like the same page of that like very different that time and like another for Mike. But like I'm by then like I'm like will but still I'm looking at eventually that will totally realizing how much of like how much of that bond and affection between like mine and everyone, how much how genuine it is like like will eventually realizing it and I'm looking like definitely it's like and will totally eventually come to that acceptance that like it's like element that might has that affection towards and like it's like might that element has that affection towards like so like will eventually come to that independence, will come to that extent where like will eventually maturing up and coming to that extent where like will be realizing that like for like that is like might happen than like with like positiveness that like they should be prioritizing and basically for like not for Mike to be like the happiest like will should like for me let Mike and 11 be continue on with the relationship and that will feel like always get out of it. And basically, along the lines of that, maturing and acceptance, like, and this finally usually happening to like when like changes in our that I'm maturing. And I'm maturing it would be around that time that I'm like will would be only like finding a boyfriend in his like definitely my consideration. So like like the Indian scenario that I'm maturing and mentioned. Okay, so like actually my potential right now, because like 11 right now trying to find head like whether to really have a better like through like the last where like I'm definitely 11 not being able to push definitely my brain because like especially after like Billy had like noticed like 11 through the dark void flying on Billy like at that point the one definitely that way like run up might have found out about it and then like might have run like or to like Billy and that's like over and like experience and for like already by now Brandon might have got the statements like experiments to have human intelligence gain to the past to that extent that I'm current by now already about the correctable business by now either Billy himself might have gained superpowers to like only uh, cancel out and create that barrier which prevents like element even though from like the dark voice being able to not only find Billy but also like the person that Billy decides to not to make not accessible to element might be the case and that way like Billy might have according to that friend of owners like Billy might have set up like the barrier on Heather as well. And that way, like I'm doing right now, at like 7, was like about to try to like act with like stuff where I'm trying to like search for Heather, like I'm doing like I'm not being able to find Heather at all. It's like the scenario that I'm so like I'm doing it to be just that absolute dark void, that anyone will be seeing. Won't be the case like my good reputation. Like I'm doing like even while 11 won't be able to like see Heather's like I'm still understanding the scenario being like 11 could be able to like see the location where like kind of in like the person will be held in, but like it will be just like the people alone that like the head as well as like the people that will be present along with like that during that point that like I'm putting that everyone won't be able to like see. But like I'm putting like the location where Shadab would be right now in most likely in some kind of like situation that like everyone will be able to like see the location. Certainly when it so like the location will be the location of that indeed of like the god of like the scenario that I'm looking for it. So that I'm putting that not even believers with like for like any of that the individuals among like superhuman army most likely probably having easier like cancel out of like disabled from like elements like facility and access to like the dark void might be the case that elements that way like element right now while accessing the dark void seeing like the leader of like the god of is like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like from that point on, it I'm putting like quickly with like the episode even saying referring connecting to like the thing of like the light bloods and everything. So like I'm definitely from the point on to the like 11 as well as my being on the quest to find Billy as well as like like what's another that episode. So like to find them like since like the only clue they would be having at that point would be like the interior of the building of that door on. So like from that point on like 11 as well as like Maxine on the quest to like find where exactly like the building would be where like 11 had seen this like interior of. It's like in the scenario that I'm remembering.